It is good to be with you. And of course, as always, let me quickly say this. Folks out there in Facebook land, whatever that terminology is, you know who you are. Hey, this is the moment you want to hit share right here. It was good up to this point, but you really want to hit share to let friends and family know what's going on here and a couple enemies while you're at it. So go ahead and just hit that share button. We'd appreciate that. As you know, over the last, this whole entire year, we've had the theme lights, camera, action. And of course, our theme verse has been Genesis 1:1, very simple. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And so we've been on this journey, and our tour guide, Carrie, amazing, bringing us through our time on Sunday morning and getting us to the point where we're at. So thank you very much. Hey, she does a great, just give her a hand. Told you you'd be good at it. And so we've been going through this journey, but we've been using, of course, lights, camera, actions. But each week we've been connecting with a very familiar, iconic movie in our culture, and it's been just a wonderful time. If you recall, Jaws, we're going to need a bigger boat. Last week, roads, where we're going, we don't need any roads. Well, today I thought, it's similar because Dr. Lincoln's here, so I thought I'd bring a classic movie in. And so I am thrilled to death to turn over this time to Dr. Lincoln, by the way, who is a friend of mine. If you know me, you know my mentorship with him and friendship. It's been good night, 80 years now, I think. It's been a while. But he is the one. By the way, if you can't stand me, you don't like me, blame him. If you love me, that's my parents. But we've been connected now well over a decade, and so I'm just thrilled to be introducing my good friend, my mentor, everything that John, explains, how he explains it. So, Dr. Lincoln, I'm going to ask you to come up, and you have the floor. And so you just kick back, relax. I don't think it's going to be an hour and a half like a movie. We'll go back to the old black and white movies. About 25 minutes, he'll be with us 30. And so enjoy. So, Dr. Lincoln, come on up, and thank you for being with us. I'll give you a knuckle bump. How's that sound?
All right, let's begin. When I was a toddler, and that was just after the end of World War II. I'm not going to tell you how many years after. But I asked my mother a question. And I remember asking the question, and I remember how I felt about it. The question was simple. Where is God? Where? She said, everywhere. Well, that didn't tell me much. Because you see, I couldn't see him and touch him and hear him and so forth. He's just everywhere. So life went on. And eventually, because we went to church every Sunday we could, but because it was that time in the world's history, gas was very difficult to get. Well, it's petrol in New Zealand, but anyhow. And so we could only go when we had some petrol. We could put it into the vehicle, start it up, and get to church. And we went to church. And I said to my mother, why do we go to church? And she said, to worship God. Oh, there was that word again. Worship someone I'd never met. And how did I know he was really there? Was this real or was this fantasy? And so as I grew up, I really had to search to understand, is there a God? Have you ever asked yourself, is there a God? You see, it's the most important thing we've got to settle if we're going to learn how we should live. Because it's the most divisive thing in the world today. Over 70% of the people in the United States say, I believe there is a God. How much that impacts with their lives, we don't know. But we do know this. There are a lot of people today saying there isn't a God. And that started a long time ago. It was over 500 years ago when a man by the name of Copernicus, he was very bright and smart, and he figured out for the first time that the earth revolves around the sun. And the world was shocked. We all thought, way back then, I wasn't alive 500 years ago in case you don't really understand that, but way back then, they thought the earth was the center and the sun was going around the earth. And they thought the earth, therefore, was what the whole universe was created for, because it was in the center. We found it wasn't. In our particular galaxy, the sun. So, okay, people started saying, we go to church to worship God. God created the heavens and the earth. Something's happening here. We're being told something that is disturbing our faith in God. Now, do you believe in God? If you do, think about this question. Is it a heart faith or a head faith? Most people today, when they say, oh, I believe in God, it's because of their heart. The way they really believe with their heart. But there are many of them, if you said, tell me why we should believe in God. What's the reason or reasons? They don't have a head faith. They have only a heart faith. So we're going to talk a little, to begin with, about a head faith, so that we can defend our faith. And when we can defend our faith to others, everything makes so much more sense. 500 years ago, well, they had a conference a little over 500 years later, and the conference was to talk about Copernicus and his great discovery and all the rest of it, and what science was saying today about whether there's a God or not. And a man from Cambridge University in England stood up. His name was Brandon Carter. And he said, let me show you something. Let me show you that science today has turned the tables on atheism that believes there isn't a God. Because now science has overwhelmingly clearly shown that this universe of ours is definitely a designed universe. Designed. Oh, that upsets something else. You see, there was a man by the name of William Paley. He wrote a book. He called it Natural Theology. And in that book, he showed that humans and everything in our universe is designed. And there was a man who read that book. And he was the man who turned things all backwards. His name was, of course, and you know it very well, Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin said, I've almost memorized that book that shows to everyone that this is a designed universe. He went out to the Galapagos Islands, and he studied, and he thought, and he came back and said, no, it isn't. This universe is something that has been created by natural selection, chance. Well, if that was really true, what would we be doing here this morning? We wouldn't be worshiping God, we'd be worshiping chance. Worshiping chance? Any one of you been off and gambled your money away and lost it all? It's the God of chance that caused you to do that. And you failed. We don't worship chance. Chance isn't something to worship. Okay, so Brandon Carter said, and I'm going to tell you a little bit of science here. This universe in which we live, the entire universe, depends on 4 basic forces. They call them constants because they are always in effect. If they're not in effect, we're in deep trouble. We would die. The first one is the electromagnetic force. It's everywhere in our universe. Particularly here in our world, it is at a certain force or power created by lightning. If there was no lightning, you would not be alive, and nor would I. Electromagnetic force is necessary. You're made up of cells, tiny little cells. There's over 1 trillion, maybe 2 trillion cells in a human body. Your skin is made of cells, your heart is made of cells, your brain, everything. This is totally made of cells. How tiny must they be? And yet inside those cells, there's an electromagnetic force. And that electromagnetic force is actually operating so that those cells can give you life. If it wasn't here, your cells would shut down. There's a strong nuclear force. There's a weak nuclear force, number 3. And here's one that's most important to New Zealanders. It's called the force of gravity. Because you see, here's the world and we're down here. And we're standing upside down. And if there wasn't gravity, we'd fall off. We thank God every day for gravity. Do you know this? That those 4 forces had to be here from the very beginning of creation. For the very beginning. And they had to be here in an exact amount, each one of them. And they are so finely tuned that the chance of them being here in exactly that amount is virtually impossible. At the very beginning of the creation of the world, we see a design that came from a designer, of course. Now that's interesting, and that's very informative. But what is science doing today? Science is looking into everything in the human body and everything in the universe, and nothing comes back with the word undesigned, happened by chance. It all comes back with three words written on it: intelligence, purpose, and design. Our universe is that. The atheists are running for cover. How in the world do they explain it? What are they going to do? You can have a very intelligent faith based on the fact that science, even though some of those scientists don't believe in God, they have been observing what God has done. And their observations are confirming the fact that you should be here today to worship God. Let's think of it this way. If the world shows clear intelligence, designing it for a purpose, and every cell in your body shows the same thing, if that's the case, the world never came from chance. Darwin is totally wrong. He even said, if you ever come to the point in life where you know you've discovered something about humans, about animals, about trees, about anything in this world, about anything in the universe, that is absolutely, irreducibly complex, everything I've told you is wrong. And that's exactly what scientists are telling us today. It is irreducibly complex. Take one thing away, and the entire universe would not be happening the way it is now. You can sit in your seat, and you can say, when I say there is a God, I am making a very intelligent statement that science cannot say no to. But they're desperately trying to. And they obviously have a major problem. Well, if intelligence is behind the universe, think about it, think with me. If the universe is clear evidence of intelligent creation, what is that intelligence? Oh, well, we can't answer that because intelligence requires a mind. Oh, let's change the question. Who is the intelligent one behind the universe? We're kind of stuck. It isn't your pastor. He hasn't got a big enough mind. Nor me. Nor any of us. There is only one answer. God. You can walk out of here this morning saying, I know for sure now that there is a God. There really is. Look how the Bible starts off from right at the very beginning. You know, you pick up a book and you open it and you read what's there at the beginning. And what does it say? It says, in the beginning, right at the very start. The next word, in the beginning, God. God was there. Wow. How do I know that God was there? How do I know that there is a God? It tells us where to look to find out. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And if you will study the heavens and the earth and everything in it, you will find the fingerprint of an intelligent creator. That's how you could know for certain that there is a God. Everything in the scientific world is really being turned upside down, but there's still a lot of scientists who don't want to admit it, you see. So, let's do this. How should we live? We should live with a firm belief in God. We should live every day knowing that God is here. There is a God. And it should change our lives. What about Jesus? Well, he's God. He's God in human flesh. And only because we know that there is a God that could create this magnificent universe can we believe that it is possible for God to send his Son. And we're told why, so that we could see exactly what God is like. And one other thing, when we look at Jesus, we can see how we should live because he showed us this is the way God lives. And because God created you, this is the way you live. So let's turn to a passage. It's in the New Testament. And if you have your Bible, you can turn to it if you want to. It's Matthew chapter 7. And in Matthew 7, we hear these words. This is just one thing that Jesus taught us about how to live. Just one. But listen to it. He said, ask, and it'll be given to you. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and the door will be open to you. Why? Because you and I are created in God's image, and God is much, much bigger than us. And if we're created in God's image and we want to create something and we want to make something happen and we want to live like God lives, we better use the intelligence he gave us. Yeah, it's true. Even though some people might tell you otherwise, you are intelligent. And you have a brain. You really do. And you have a mind. Now, the brain you can find. You have a bad accident and things are just not quite real, like what they ought to be up here, and you go along to your surgeon and say, okay, something has happened to me. This thing up here is not operating. Will you please work on my brain? The surgeon says, sure. Drills a hole, goes in there, says, I know where it is. It's right inside your skull. But then you go back to the same intelligent surgeon and you say, you know, I'm having a problem. The problem is I have bad thoughts. Bad thoughts. And I want you to go in there and cut them out. And he says, they're in your mind, aren't they? You say, yes. He says, I haven't got the foggiest idea where your mind is. Because amazingly, you and I are not just a physical body. We're also a human spirit. And that human spirit is something you will never find. Back to when I was a toddler. And my mother said, God is everywhere, but I can't see him. Is he in the bedroom? Where is he? You see, you can't see a spirit. You can't see your mind. You can't find it. So the surgeon says, I can't do anything. But it's that human spirit, your soul, that is something God can really help you do tremendous things with, as well as with your body. So he says, here's how I want you to be intelligent. If you don't know something, for goodness sake, ask. Ask and you'll receive. And why don't you ask me, he says. You say, yeah, but if I ask you, I don't even know where you are. Do you hear me when I talk? Do I have to say it out aloud? Can I say just a prayer in my head? Yeah, you can. That's amazing too. God hears everything. And I could tell you things about science that will make you absolutely believe. Now, Jesus said, seek and you'll find. Do these things. Act as though you were created by an intelligent God in His image. Act like it. Live like it. Be someone who discovers something. Be wonderful, because you truly are. And that verse has never been scrubbed out of the Bible. You're made in His image, male and female. Both. So, what I want you to do is I want you to say, I'm going to follow the teachings of Jesus. Because the teachings of Jesus are telling us how God lives. Let me read one more verse. It says in that passage, because it is really a fascinating passage, it says that we, each one of us, are to live so as we would like other people to live, and therefore we must do good to them because we want definitely for them to see the goodness of God in us. You need to be loving, but you need to be good. And if you and I are not good, our love isn't worth very much. So please seek for goodness and love and live by it. And when you do, you will even feel that you're doing what God wants you to do. I've said a lot of things. Too much? Maybe, but don't tell me that. I want you to take away this certainty. You can say, I believe in God, and be proud of the intelligence that you're showing. And I want you to go out there and live like God, and it will literally transform your life. Thank you. They're going to come up. I want you to do this. Thank you. Okay.